this morning, Scotty, listening to you and the Stellectricity. You guys were talking about this and your takeaways from All-Star Weekend. Let's start there. That was pretty exciting news with the Four Nations hockey tournament. I'll call it the World Cup, but there was a lot of things coming out of the weekend.
Yeah, there's no question, Rod. And I'm just thinking about the Four Nations next year. We were talking about this in the press box a little bit on the weekend. Who would be the favorite going into that tournament? I mean, normally you'd say Canada, and I wouldn't bet against us. And that's what we're going to say 9 times out of 10 and twice on Sundays. But you wonder, though, Canada in goal. The questions about goaltending. Who is going to be the goaltender for Team Canada? Is it going to be Jordan Binnington? Is it going to be Stuart Skinner? I mean, these are two names that would certainly leap off the page at you. If Marc-Andre Fleury was 5 or 6 years younger, he might still be more seriously in the mix. But you know the problem, the dilemma that Canada is going to have by way of comparison to these other 3 countries, namely Team USA. On the surface, Team USA appears to have much better goaltending than Team Canada, and us as Canadians, certainly that's something that we have to take note of.
Okay, buddy. Well, it'll be not a best-of-7 series. It'll be a tournament. We can outscore our problems with the likes of McDavid and McKinnon and the rest. And to be honest, my answer would have been Carter Hart, and we're not going down that road. But Arizona's Connor Ingram's also represented Canada at the World Juniors. So honestly, and I'm a goalie guy, but I'm with you. I do think that we will be fine. Besides that, again, I know what your takeaways were. I was listening this morning. But tell our audience how you felt about NHL All-Star Weekend.
Well, I think it was well received by Toronto. I mean, why wouldn't it be? You talk about Toronto. They are a Leafs city, no question about it. They are a National Hockey League city, too. It's a best of the best type city. I think it was well received. It was embraced. And we've been to all the different markets, including Florida, which did a bang-up job, of course, as you know, Rod, going back to last year. But the fans really seem to be into it. Every little thing they could get their hands on, from merchandising to where were the players at, the whole bit. We knew the stands were going to be full, regardless of what ticket prices were entailing and that sort of thing, too. So, look, I think it came away as expected. It was Toronto buying into the National Hockey League, and for each individual city that hosts in that particular market the All-Star Weekend. And this will be the first one for Toronto, in 24 years that we had endured. But this will be the last one for the National Hockey League, as we know, until at least 2027. So this was something to be cherished, and I think Toronto sports fans really did buy into it.
It looked that way, and take a bow, NHL. Nobody got hurt. The competition was great. And the main thing was smiles. Everywhere I looked, everybody was smiling, and I like that. Now, back to business tonight with 2 games. Patrick Roy brings his Islanders into Toronto, and Colorado was at the Rangers. People have drawn a lot of conclusions already. We're just past the halfway point, Scott. These trends aren't entirely going to continue. We may still have a bunch of coaches fired still the rest of the way. I think we got a long ways to go before this thing is done.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There are some great storylines, I think, the unofficial second half of the season to look forward to, Rod. And whether it's, can Florida catch Boston in the Atlantic? Scott? Whether it's going to be a Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg battle for top spot in the Central Division, there are some great storylines to monitor. I guess when you're looking at it, too, when you talk about McKinnon and Kucherov and the battle for the Art Ross, there are some great individual stories, of course, to focus on here, the unofficial second half of the season, too. So I really do think that there are plenty of things to watch. We hope that that's going to be it as far as coaching changes go. We hope that Todd McLellan being shown the door is the last we hear of a change. It appears like the Los Angeles Kings are going to buy into Jim Hiller as being the short-term and perhaps even longer-term answer in Los Angeles. So hopefully that's it for the coaching carousel until at least the offseason. But there's plenty to play for here, as we know, in the next couple of months.
I heard you last week. You'd think I was your stalker, but you were talking about Todd McLellan, and you said, I'm not trying to get anybody fired here. Do you get a lot of heat when you're critical from the hockey people on what you say on the air?
No, I don't think so, Rod. I mean, I think with what we heard from Todd after they let that one get away against the Buffalo Sabres at Crypto.com not that long ago, I almost looked at Todd and listened to Todd that night. It sounded like he was making a call for help. Like, I've tried everything, guys. You don't think I've tried that? I've tried to push and prod this team. It just hasn't worked. And yet they kept them around for a couple more days after that. They go down to Nashville, play a very good game, and beat the Nashville Predators. So we thought that might be the saving grace. ultimately Rob Blake, who's a very, very loyal guy, decided, you know what? This is not working. This is not going to be a long-term solution for us. We need to change a voice, even if it is just Jim Hiller sliding down the bench and maybe having a louder voice at that. We've got to change things up. There were things that were said by Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar, the team captain, recently, where they intimated that the players might be a little bit on the selfish side of things, that they might be more interested in individual numbers than winning as a team. And I think maybe that put up the antennas a little bit further as far as Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille and company were concerned. They decided to make the change. So we'll see. I think that's a playoff team in Los Angeles still. I think they get back on track, but they have to get back to defense first. And that was what was working for them earlier on this season.
13 coaches let go, fired since the end of last season. What is the buzz as to why? Is it more volatile than ever, or does it just seem that way?
Well, it's crazy too, Rod. I mean, you and I can remember a time decades ago where, okay, if you go winless in 7 or 8, it's not the end of the world. It's an 82-game schedule. At one point, it was an 84-game schedule. That sort of thing. You would be a little bit more patient. But now the money is so big. The pressure to win is so great. You've got social media, which, of course, everybody's got to chime in and have an opinion after each and every win and loss along the way. So I think these days, coaches clearly have a lot shorter shelf life. We also note the fact is that the players make a lot more money now. It used to be back in the day, back in the 1980s, you're watching the National Hockey League. You know the guy who's going to be there over the long haul is the guy behind the bench. He's the guy that has the final say. Players didn't make as much back then. Now players greatly out-earn the head coaches. And because of that, the players have all the power. And if the players decide, you know what, this is not our cup of tea, this is not the guy we want to go through the wall for, they'll find the next guy down the block from just around the corner, of course, that can come in and give it a whirl from his perspective, too. So I think various reasons as to why it's changed. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Rod, I think it's the pressure to win is greater now than it ever has been. And that does not bode well for head coaches, as we see.
Great answer. And thank God we work in the safe broadcasting industry, right, Scott? We have hardly
stable
any
business.
more security.
Yes, the stable business that we work in, Rod. It's great.
And a fraction of the pay of these guys. All right. Scott, keep it up, man. I always enjoy chatting hockey with you. We'll visit soon.
Anytime. Thanks for having me as always, Rod.
SiriusXM NHL Radio, Scott Laughlin joining us from Tirana.